Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracusa, Walking Faith. It's Friday, it's beautiful out, and I am so happy to be sitting down with my good friend Ed Wilkinson, who I'm going to get his title wrong. He's the editor emeritus at the Tablet. I think everyone in the world, especially the diocese, knows Ed Wilkinson. So Ed, in case there's one person out there, I don't think there is, that doesn't know who you are and what you've accomplished, just give us a quick, 30-second rundown of who Ed Wilkinson is.
Well, Craig, for the past 50 years, I've been working for the Tablet newspaper, and I was the editor of the Tablet for 33 years, and, I've seen the newspaper industry from both sides, the old days and now the new days. So I'm a newspaper guy. I've been lucky enough to be working in a little bit of television, Catholic television, in the past couple of years. I have a weekly show on TV where I interview priests. It's called On the Block with Ed Wilkinson. So I've gotten to do a lot of different kinds of media things in the past few years, but basically, I'm a newspaper guy at heart.
Wow. So your publicist said I can't make this joke or ask you about the Spanish flu, but were you around during the Spanish flu?
No, but I've written extensively about it.
Okay, so they said stay away from the Spanish flu joke, so I'm not going to mention the Spanish flu joke. But, obviously you have awards and trophies all behind you. I see pictures of the Pope. So now the Tablet newspaper, I'm not sure, is that the first Catholic newspaper in the United States?
It's not the first Catholic newspaper, but it is one of the oldest and one of the most prestigious Catholic newspapers in the United States. Because Brooklyn is a pretty big and busy diocese, great reputation in the church. And to be the editor of the Catholic newspaper here in Brooklyn is really a prestigious thing. It's really an honor to be the editor of the Tablet here in Brooklyn. So it's a paper that many people have looked to. It's always been in the forefront of Catholic journalism. At one time, it was a national newspaper back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. It was really a national newspaper before a lot of dioceses had their own diocesan newspapers. So it's a well-respected paper, and it's really been an honor to be associated with it now for the past 50 years.
What was the subscription like back then when you said national? And also, what's the difference between a secular newspaper, it could be the Post, the Times, versus a Catholic newspaper?
Sure. Well, the circulation in its heyday was probably about 160,000 when it was a national paper. And oddly enough, we still maintain circulation in about 45 different states in the United States. Wow. People still look to the Tablet. Many people who move out of Brooklyn, retire somewhere else, they get the Tablet delivered to them. So we still have a very healthy circulation of about 65,000 copies. But in its heyday, it was about 160,000, which is really pretty big for a Catholic newspaper.
And now, so what's the difference now besides obviously,
the
difference between, say, a story like the coronavirus, if it was in a secular paper versus a Catholic newspaper? How was the
Sure. Yeah, well, we're a Catholic newspaper, so we always look at things from the church's perspective. We come from a Catholic background. We believe in Catholic moral teaching. We are the voice of the bishop here in the diocese. We're a diocesan newspaper. So we represent the bishop's voice in the marketplace. So we're always going to come at these issues from a perspective of faith. And if there's something that we can bring to a story that's not in the secular press is going to look at it from a totally humanistic viewpoint. We're going to put that extra element of faith into it and to say, all right, what are people doing during the coronavirus pandemic to help their fellow men? How do they cope with it from their own religious beliefs? We always ask the question, why does God allow this evil? Mm-hmm. Well, we have a whole Catholic teaching on that, and we bring that to the forefront when we talk about it. So there's a whole different perspective that we're coming to because we are Catholic and because we're a religious paper that you're not going to get in the secular newspapers.
That's interesting. And you mentioned something which I've noticed a lot. A lot of people now, number one, have been talking or speaking openly about their faith, people that I didn't even realize had any faith or religion, whether they were spiritual or Catholic or Baptist. But now they're all speaking openly about their faith because I guess society feels like it's accepted, right, on social media. And then also you see a lot of people and people that we know, like we'll mention the Vinnie Leviens, the John Hyers that are from the diocese that, they've always stepped up, but now just average people, like just normal people are stepping up and being motivated by their faith and to live a selfless life because I guess during this pandemic, everything's been stripped away and priorities are really set forth. Have you noticed that on your end, people like the Vinnies and the Johns that, are really stepping up and putting their life on the risk to serve, God.
Mhm. Well, I think, we're in a crisis situation like this. We're really confronted with our own mortality. We look at around and we see people that we actually know who are dying, and we're saying, we better watch out because this could be me. It really touches home, when it's the guy next door that's passing away, taken to the hospital, who's got suffering with this virus. And you begin to confront yourself with some big questions like, well, as I face this and I look, well, what is life all about? And you see a guy like Vinny or John Heyer who really believe in that we're interrelated, that that we do live in a community, and part of being a Catholic is being part of a community, and it's being relational in relationship to other people. So these guys have really gone out of their way to help their fellow human beings, delivering masks and surgical gowns and just really. I mean, they're working hard. John, I know, is burying the dead, which is a huge task right now. You feel so sorry for these people whose bodies are, their families, their bodies are just piled up at funeral homes. And John is out there trying to make a difference. So, these are guys who make a difference. And I think as people of faith, we're supposed to be making a difference. You could also make a difference by staying home and, just staying out of other people's way and make sure you don't spread the virus. But you do need people on the front lines, guys like Vinny's and like John. They're great guys who are doing great work right now. It's God's work.
Yeah, it really.
And doctors and nurses and policemen, look at how they've been affected. I can't believe how many police officers and firefighters have this disease. So, I mean, they're really putting their lives on the line when they go out there every day to protect us.
I agree. And I think the Pope spoke about it last week in one of his homilies about, and I said the same thing. I said to my wife, I said, you're so concerned about the boxes that are coming in from Amazon. I said, what about the guy delivering the boxes? What about that guy who probably has no health insurance, making, minimum wage, delivering boxes in a truck? He's got a family. Like, they're heroes because he's allowing me to stay safe in my home, in quarantine and shelter in place, while he's risking his life. But you, in the past, you take it for granted. You go to the supermarket. They have families. They don't want to be there. They have to be there. Some of them, obviously, it's, they want to be there. They have to be there regardless, but they're putting their life on the risk. Doctors. So what's happening now is we're all susceptible to it. You can, have faith, no faith. You could be a celebrity. You could be a million. It doesn't matter. You're all susceptible to this virus. And it's really stripped away everything that we thought was important and put in the front to see real heroes. It's not the celebrities necessarily. It's the guy who's carrying the groceries, the guy who's cutting the meat, the people in the hospitals. It's really showing us what's important in life and putting our priorities in order.
Yeah, I think it's really forced us to, confront who we are. What are we about? What does it really mean to be a person of faith? Do I really believe? What does it say about faith and hope and then charity? How you live those things. So it's really an exception. I've never seen times like this before. I mean, people are scared. You got to be honest. People are afraid. Other people are able to roll with it. But you got to be careful. A lot of people are afraid. You got to emotionally, they're upset. They don't know what's going to confront them. So these are really trying times for people's souls.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm going to talk about with someone later on today about depression, because the president mentioned it, and, a lot of pastors are mentioning, priests, there's a lot of depression right now. There's a lot of fear, so a lot of us have strong faith foundations and some people don't, but either way, there's still that sense of fear. Another thing that we've noticed is that, like we mentioned, a lot of people are gravitating towards faith. And the question and concern I have is that, during the storm, we have a strong foundation, thank God, and we work on it every day. But some people sort of dabble in the faith. They go on Sunday, maybe they have a relationship with God, or maybe they don't go to church because it's raining out. But now during this time, they have such a strong faith. Now life goes back to the new normal, and they go, all right, God, let me put you back in the box. I don't need you right now until something else comes up. How do we avoid that? How does someone avoid that? How do they build a foundation with their faith with God? So when goes back to the new normal, they still have that relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that frightens me a little bit is that we've gotten very used to going to mass on TV now. I hope that doesn't carry over when this is all over, where people still stay home and want to celebrate on television, because they become comfortable doing that, and things of the mass and liturgy is very accessible on television, on on computers, on television these days, like what our own Net TV network is doing. It's been great stuff, but I hope that people will remember that essentially we are a community and that we need to see other people and relate to other people in person. So, and I think what you have to sit down, you have to ask yourself. I'm a little concerned when I hear people ask the question about evil, and they say, "Why has God let us down? Why?" I mean, these are old biblical questions that the Jewish people asked in the Old Testament. Where is God in these situations? But we have to remember, like, this is part of our Catholic teaching, that this is not the life that we're supposed to be living. There is going to be evil in the world that's going to confront us every day. We're not going to be happy here, totally happy here on earth. That's for another day, another time after we move on to another world. But there's always going to be good confronting evil. It's always going to be present. So we shouldn't be surprised when it does show up and affects us so deeply. When a loved one is taken from us, and we say, well, it's not really God who's doing that. That is just what life is all about, and it's what we're taught as Catholics. That this is life. That this is not a heavenly kingdom that we live in right now. That day will come some other time, and until then, you're going to have a lot of trials and a lot of things that you have to get over, a lot of bumps in the road. That's just who we are as human beings. And as Catholics, we can look at that through the eyes of faith and say, God has a plan. This is all going to work out for us. It might be hard to understand at the moment, but there is some good is going to come out of this.
And I think that's, not to say it's easier for you, but, we have a relationship. We continue to build a relationship, but there are people out there that don't really know much about the church, whether they're religious, Catholic, spiritual, whatever. They might not fully understand that. So what are some of the tools that they can use during this time to say, okay, how do I, overcome the storm? How do I build a relationship? What are some of the basic things they could do during this time?
Well, I mean, if they're inclined to, they could do some spiritual reading. There's plenty of stuff that they can read. It wouldn't hurt to go back and read some of the New Testament, some Bible stories themselves to immerse themselves again into faith. And again, it's up to guys like you and I and people who actually work for the church to be evangelizers, to make our message clear and to broadcast this message to other people so that they have a chance to hear it. I mean, if people don't hear this message, they're not going to be listening to it. They're going to get messages from a lot of other places. But you and I, in a sense, we work in a Catholic media environment, and it's up to us to do things like what we're doing right now. And hopefully people will hear something that will resonate with them in some way, and that they will feel more inclined to think along the lines of faith-based people. And if they do feel moved like that, they should come forward to church and come to church and talk to a priest and talk to somebody else about their faith and what it means, and ask somebody else, well, your personal faith, why do you believe this? What does this do for you? And so it's a matter, I think, again, it's a matter of being relational, of being one to another, talking to one to another. And we have a job to do as evangelizers ourselves.
I like that. I never considered myself an evangelizer, but thank you.
You are.
I was listening to Billy Graham. I love Billy Graham, right? I love his books, and I was listening to him today, and I said, I wonder, can I ever picture myself speaking in front of 45,000 people? But I guess when he started too, I don't think he thought about that either. But this is 30, 40 years ago. He's speaking, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, I feel like I'm actually in the stadium in Brazil or wherever Giant Stadium, Yankee Stadium, wherever he was speaking at the time. But you mentioned something, and I agree. I think this time, yes, I understand you're about people who need to come together in a church and not in actual building, not just on social media. But one thing that I think this is doing this time is, like I said before, people that I've never spoken to about faith, didn't even know they were religious, are reaching out to me and commenting. I think this time is planting a seed. And whether it's, like I keep saying, I've been watching Bible studies online. I never thought about going to Bible studies, didn't feel comfortable. At the time, I had a million excuses. Now I'm listening to it, plant the seed. When it starts, I'm actually going to go. So I think people are getting sort of the experience of what church is like through social media. When life gets back to normal, they might feel a little bit more inclined to go because we're bringing church to them. So I think this, in a sense, is going to really change the dynamic of the church. Vocations, I see vocations changing. I really do. I see people going into different lines of work. Like you said before, we question, not what do I do? Who am I? What am I called to do? And I think people are really evaluating, like, time, money, what's important, you know, like family. We don't have enough time. Now we have more than enough time. And it just gives us time to think about what's truly important. And I mean, I'm seeing it myself. Do I really need to struggle for money and success in the eyes of society? Or can I just, you know, be my family and be religious? What do you lean on personally during this time? Because now you're writing for the paper, you know, and your life is difficult. You have a son, you have a wife. I mean, you know, have underlying conditions, you know, but yet we still have to have true faith because, like you said, we're on the forefront in terms of preaching the gospel and the media. What do you, I mean, you must get afraid and fear, you know, have a sense of fear, right? Or, I mean, how do you?
Well, when I hear, you know, when I hear these messages on TV all the time, sometimes you can watch too much news, you know, and they tell you, you know, if you're over a certain age, you're at a particular risk. And I say, well, wait a minute, that's me. You know, thank God I don't have any underlying conditions. But I do get fearful sometimes. And when I go out, you know, I don't like to avoid people, but you have to stay at least 6 feet away from people. So it is kind of frightening. And, you know, you just have to constantly, fortunately, you know, I'm a lifelong Catholic. My faith was a gift. You got to remember, faith is a gift. You know, it's a gift that I was given, and it's built up over the years. So I think I come at it with a certain advantage that, you know, that other people maybe don't have because they weren't given that gift of faith. But I have to be grateful that I do have the faith because I do see things through the eyes of faith. And, you know, hopefully, again, as evangelizers, we can pass on that gift to other people. I mean, it really is. Not everybody has faith, you know, and it is a gift. It is something that you give. And we can give it through the media, through our Catholic newspapers, through our Catholic television, through sharing like this on social media. This is a gift that we have to share with other people. And I think it's very important to realize that not everybody has this gift. We have something special. We're meant to share it with other people.
You're right. And some people don't even have the ability to practice their faith, you know,
Right.
in certain countries.
Right.
So now, one other question now, like you said, you've been in the media business 50 years, 60 years, maybe 80 years. I don't know exactly how old
50.
you are. 50. I see pictures back there, black and white, looks like from the beginning of the 1900s. But who's that, Pope Pius? But
there's an old papal blessing back there. I think it's Pope Pius XI, I think, that I picked up in a market one day.
I think you're a little bit older than 80. But so in all these years, now how do you see the media changing? I know you said that you actually did an interview on Zoom, and we're on Zoom, which I like Zoom a lot, but you did a live interview with one of the upcoming bishops on Zoom. So do you see this media outlet changing in terms of, you know, even yesterday, Disney had a video, and I said to my wife, you don't really need to leave your home to create content anymore. And she's like, no, you know, everyone disagrees. But like Anthony Mangano, a good friend, did voiceovers from home. They mailed him the kit. He did a voiceover. And you see even they had things on Netflix where they're sending cell phones and recording documentaries. And so, I mean, do you see this media world changing a little bit in terms of more work like what we're doing being done at home?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when we go back to whatever normal is supposed to be, it's going to be a whole new way of existing. I mean, we've learned from this pandemic that people don't necessarily have to be in the office. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't need as much office space as we thought we needed at one time. You know, the people can do their job remotely, certainly like reporters. Reporters have been out in the field and they've been working and they have all these new gadgets and computers and, you know, they could log on and sign on with people back at the home base. But maybe you don't need a place in the office for reporters. They could work remotely all the time. And like the other day, I said we had a press conference with Father Sweeney, who has just been named, he's a Brooklyn priest, who was just named Bishop of Paterson, New Jersey. And the press conference, he was in his rectory. There were about 20 reporters on the line like myself, and we were all talking to him from our home via Zoom. Yeah. And we could ask our questions of him. And, you know, I mean, it's so convenient, first of all. It takes a lot of work, as you know, to put on a press conference. You have to get the space. You have to set up cameras. People have to travel there. Yeah. All that stuff can be avoided right now. You just get on the screen in your living room and you sit there and you talk with Father Sweeney and boom, the job is done. Yeah. And you haven't gone through all of this running around and paperwork and putting up the lights and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's so different from what I was used to in the beginning.
And I agree. I mean, I could do, and if I'm not in, my home, I could do 1, 2 interviews. I've done a lot in a day, but I can do at home 5, 6 interviews in a day because there's no travel. There's no, I love small talk, but there's no waiting on someone who's stuck in traffic. There's no waiting on the crew, setting up the lights, like you said, setting up the microphone. It's just plug and play. I go, and then that's it. I'm done with the interview. I have another 1.5 hours. I can just keep doing them. And overall, the overhead is so much less. And I'm starting to think, I mean, it gets a little bit, there is that flat sort of on the screen. It's flat. You don't get that same rapport with the person when you're doing an interview. You can't see their eyes. I get it, but I agree. I think this will become sort of the new normal. And I was saying to my wife, and I was saying to other actors and stuff, I said, when we're on a movie set or a TV set, or I do a junket, or if I do a junket for NBC, there must be hundreds of people coming in and out. How do I know this person wasn't infected? So now, and you're not 6 feet apart. You got to be on top of them with the mic. So you start to question. And these celebrities have met hundreds of people in a day. You know what I mean? So God only knows. So now I'm saying to myself, will that change? Will that become virtual like this? I mean, they can't put plexiglass on at NBC's up front, but, I'm starting to think like the new normal. I really think that things will change, and we'll look back and say, how did we ever do this? How did we ever, I don't want to say shake hands, but I think certain things will change, especially within our industry. In terms of the newspaper, that doesn't affect you at all, right? The newspaper?
The newspaper, I've always said that we could do this newspaper remotely. You could, everybody could stay at home and work because of the computers and all the programs that we have today. You could put this together. Right now in the tablet office, nobody is coming into the office. Everything is being done on computers, and it's being coordinated by the editors and assignment people. So this could be the wave of the future. Maybe you don't, for a newspaper office, maybe you just need one person coordinating it back at the hub, and you don't need to have all those people sitting in the office. And again, like you said, we're going to be very conscious about spreading disease now. We're always going to be conscious being in crowds. They're talking about not even allowing people to come to baseball games because
I know.
I mean, it's incredible. And there you're out in the open air. So, I mean, what does it mean when you take 30 or 40 people, 20 or 30 people, and stick them in a room, and like the press room, the old press rooms where they were all sit around at a table. I think we have to rethink all things like that about how we're set up in the offices and whether or not we actually need an office or not. This is a wave of the future. And, it's always been on my mind because we've had reporters coming into the office. I said, I don't really have to see these people all the time physically. We can do this in other ways. And I think now that we've done it, people are going to see some of the benefits to it and probably try it out.
I agree. I mean, I remember for myself personally, 5 hours a day of commuting just to get to work and back.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. Those 5 hours, though, I was productive because I was listening to stuff, writing, but I could have been home working. And then you get to work, and then they have all these studies. Number one, I've always been against open plan seating. There's so many studies on that, from people feeling uncomfortable, can't make phone calls, to people getting sick. That whole theory, Bloomberg, that's gone. I don't see open plan seating working at all. I
agree.
I really don't. Like you said, come into the office. I have several friends that own TV stations, and they work from home, right? And I've spoken to them. They go, you go to the office, they have mass control in one remote area, and they all work from home. They all do. So this is, I really think there's going to be a lot of new opportunities that come from this pandemic. So is there anything else you see? I mean, from the Catholic Church perspective, the last thing, I spoke to priests about this. So let's see the new normal, right? One pastor, which I'm going to say, hopefully he doesn't get mad, but he was thinking of doing mass by alphabetical order. And I said, that's interesting, because you can't have 50, 100 people at once, so they would do sections. Now, I asked them, Eucharist distribution, holy water, the capacity of within a church, how is that going to be altered? Like, I'm going to receive the distribution of the Eucharist. Now I'm starting to think, did you wash your hands from when you walked into when you left? You know what I mean? There's all these things that go in your mind, shaking hands, touching the holy water, giving the money. How is that going to change the church? Will it change the church?
Well, I think it probably will change the church in some ways, but I think we have to remember that, we've been living all these years by doing simple things like that because people have built up immunities to a lot of these viruses. And I think at some point, once we get this thing under control, we have to get people back into the mainstream of doing things so that the human beings can normally build up the immunities that they have to diseases. We'll build up an immunity to this disease too, hopefully. And it's not going to be a threat to wipe out the human race. But I mean, we got to remember all those years we did exchange money. We did shake hands. It's frightening to think that maybe you can't shake hands with people anymore. And so many people like to give other people an embrace.
Oh, yeah. I love to hug. I love to hug.
Nobody's going to do that anymore.
I know.
So I think we have to give this thing a little time, and then we have to become more comfortable with what it is we want to do. And we got to remember, though, that it is all in God's hands. There is a plan here. Something is happening. It's happening for a reason. We don't know what we're going to get out of this yet, but where we're going, I think, is probably going to do a good thing. We're going to learn a lot from this, and it's going to be hard to foresee all of the changes that will take place in just the way we conduct our daily lives.
I agree. Well, if Ed, I love talking to you. Been friends a long time. If there's one thing we can all walk away from this interview, beyond the future of media and the tablet, it's really about building a strong foundation in faith and just building a relationship. Take this time. I say it every day. Now, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to start talking about cars. I'm going to talk about the one thing that I know. Build a relationship with your faith. Build a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. Start praying. It doesn't have to be this massive prayer. Just build a relationship, build a foundation, and when life gets back to the new normal, don't forget about how God pulled you through. That's right. Because that's the most important thing. I wouldn't be who I am today without my faith.
I agree with you, and I think it's very important when we do get back to what so-called normalcy that we do remember where we were, during this time, and do remember that faith mattered, and work on that and build it so that the next time, our faith will be even stronger. I
love it. That's exactly. Write a journal, record something, because you will forget. Your mind has an easy way of sort of forgetting what you went through. Ed, It's always a pleasure. Love talking to you. I will talk to you today. Maybe you could shave a little, or if you don't mind.
This is just laziness. That's all.
Don't be lazy. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed sitting down with Ed, my great friend. Guys, always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through words and actions. God bless, Ed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Craig.